So I'm happy to have you on this video. Let's jump right in. Hi guys, welcome back. So I wanted to share with you some of the tips and tricks that I would personally use in order to speed up the website loading. So this is like a quick tutorial to show you what to do in order to speed up your website. For this tutorial, I'll be using a demo website. So as you can see, it's based on Divi, so it's WordPress, of course. As you know, I only work with WordPress. So it's WordPress and the theme is Divi, and this is just like one of the demo pages that come with Divi. This is what it looks like. So as you can see, it's got some graphics here and there, and it looks good, right? Because some people think that Divi is slow. Divi is not slow by default. It's how some people use it. Like any design or any theme, there are things that you need to do in order to make sure that your website is loading fast enough. Okay, so let's dive into it. The first thing that I'm going to do is to test. So I've already run the test here on this web page, and as you can see, it's loading in 2 minutes and sorry 2 minutes 2.14 seconds, so 2 seconds and 14 to whatever that is, 2 seconds. And maybe like a quarter, yeah, like so it's 2 seconds and a quarter. And because, of course, because the page is not full of stuff yet, there are only 62 requests, and the size of all the content on that page is about 2 megabytes, which is normally like a low content. Most of the pages now are in the range of 4 megabytes, 5 megabytes, and your requests would be somewhere around maybe 90 to 100, 120 requests. And the average website, when it's full, loads in about maybe 4 seconds, 3 point something seconds, unless you're on a super fast hosting, which is one of those expensive ones like WP Engine. So as I was saying, our model site or demo site here doesn't have much on it, and the page size is only about 2 megabytes. So just for comparison purposes, here's my personal website. It's already optimized. So as you can see, it loads in under 2 seconds. But what I wanted to show you here is that how big is the page? How large is the page? Which is 6.5 megabytes. And look at the number of requests. So as opposed to our brand new site, which is already just 2 megabytes and with only 62 requests, but it's taking way longer to load, which is 2 seconds and a quarter of a second. Anyway, so just to compare, let me just show you what my website looks like so you get an idea why it has that large number of requests. And of course, this would be the first thing that you will notice when the site starts to load is that big image over there. So graphics and videos take longer to load. No surprise there. It's because the graphics and the videos as files are the biggest or the like the largest size files, and of course they will take longer to load. So the more graphics you have, the longer your site will take to load. Okay, and of course you see here I've got a few things coming from my YouTube channel with the video thumbnails over here. And yeah, so that's why this page has so much on it, and that's why it's 6.5 megabytes. But with the optimization, with the correct optimization, the loading time is below 2 seconds. And generally, the best practice is for the site to load in 2.5 seconds or less. So technically speaking, or from a business perspective, the demo site that I'm working on does not need optimization, but for the sake of this tutorial, we will optimize it anyway. So let's get right in. So generally speaking, most people, when they think of optimizing their website, automatically they think of a plugin. And there are so many plugins. And some of them are free, some are premium plugins where you have to pay somewhere around maybe $100 a year or something like that. But what I want you to know is that page optimization or website optimization isn't only about having a caching and a compression plugin. There are so many other aspects that you need to be aware of in order to successfully do your optimization. Also, you need to be striking a balance. If you over optimize, you'll break the look and feel of your website. And if you under optimize, you still have more chances to reduce your loading time by a little bit more. So this balance will be between the content that you see on the page. Like as an example, you see how big this graphic is. If I go and over compress it and over optimize it, it might not look as good as it looks right now. It could be a little bit pixelated or a little bit blurry or something like that. And that's not what I want. I want it to look as good as it looks, but I want it to kind of load in less time, or lazy load. Lazy loading means it's not going to load every time the page is called upon. It will only load when it enters the viewer. So when the person who's visiting the website gets to it, like as I'm scrolling down. Also, let me refresh here because there's a little bit of an animation on the page as I scroll down. Okay, so you see like the image came in an animated way, and then down there under my services you see these little bits and pieces. These animations are either done using cascading style sheets, CSS as we call it, or sometimes it's even JavaScript. So again, if you over optimize, you might break the CSS and the JavaScript, and the animations that you see right now will not happen. So the first thing, where do I look? Where do I go? Before downloading any plugins whatsoever, I want you to go to your cPanel from your hosting. We're going to look at your PHP settings first to make sure that your PHP is optimized and all the PHP modules that we need here are actually loaded. So let me go to the control panel. If you scroll down a little bit, so you have to have a hosting that has cPanel. If you don't have cPanel, you will not see what we're talking about here. Most of the hosting companies, the reputable ones and the famous ones, would give you cPanel unless they've made their own. Like SiteGround, they have their own. It doesn't look like this, but you can still find the stuff that we're gonna find here on the SiteGround control panel. And just a word of caution, this will not work if you're on a very old style, kind of one of these legacy hosting plans that you have purchased like years ago, and it still uses the old style mechanical hard disk and not SSD. So what I'm looking for here is the select PHP version. Click there. So the first thing that you'll notice is that you'll have different PHP versions on your hosting plan. The latest PHP version is 7.4, I guess it's 7.4.8 or something, but generally speaking is 7.4. So if you have anything else here, you'd want to select 7.4. So if you have 7.2, 7.3, or even the older one, way older one, 5.5 or something like that, please, from your selector, go ahead and change it to 7.4. You don't need any other version of PHP unless for a specific reason, for something that you've done which is customized on your website that uses another version of PHP. So if you don't have anything that has been coded, hard-coded and customized, it is safe to upgrade to 7.4. What I'm looking for here is Redis. So you want to check the box for Redis. That's one of the modules that the hosting server uses in order to cache stuff and distribute this cache when the site is called upon. So you want Redis to be on. You want mem cached. So there, mem cached right over here. You want this to be on. It's another way that your server, especially if it's Apache, if it's using Apache, you want the server to be using this module. So you want this module to be on by default. And then you want imagic to be also checked, and zip. Imagic and zip might be checked by default, like you don't need to do anything to get them to work. But memcached and Redis usually are not there by default, so you'd want them both checked. Then the next thing is you're gonna go to options, and here we want to make sure that WordPress or PHP has as much memory as your hosting plan would allow. So I'm gonna go scroll all the way down until you see memory limit. Your default might be 256 or 512 megabytes, but if you have a good hosting plan that has 1 GB or 2 GB memory, you can assign this much memory to your WordPress. It will let it run way faster. In general, 512, in my opinion, is just about enough for WordPress to use. Like anything lower than that, and you'll be having a problem. Especially, excuse me, especially with the Divi builder. You know, it will take a little bit more time to load, and also your hosting backend from WordPress will be a little bit slower. So you need as much memory as you can. Once you've done these things, they save automatically. There's no save button. And if you're lucky enough to have a hosting plan that uses a LightSpeed server, I am lucky enough to have a hosting plan that has a LightSpeed server. Let me just scroll to this. There are a couple of things that you need to do in, okay, if you can't find the setting you're looking for, I'm gonna go Control F, which is find, and say light. Here it is, LightSpeed Web Cache Manager. Let's have a quick look at the options there. Usually there's an option to flush all cache and the WordPress cache, and then you've got the settings and the advanced. There's not much to do here. This is about the log file, so there's nothing to do for me here. And then the other one is the advanced. And then all what I can say here is just restart. You don't use this if there's a problem with your caching. By default, everything is configured for you. So once I've done this, as you see from my back end, all the stuff that I'm telling you about was already picked up. So this loading time, which is 2 seconds, 2.14, is with everything on. But in your case, you might not have memcached or Redis on, so you need to go, and you might not have the latest version of PHP, so you need to go here and get these things done if they're not done. Now, the next thing is downloading and configuring a good caching plugin that works well with the type of server that you have. I love using LightSpeed because, of course, as you can see, I have a LightSpeed server, so it just goes without saying, they integrate very well together. But even if you don't have a LightSpeed server, you can use LightSpeed cache. So I'm going to go add new, so plugins, add new, look for it. And you see how fast is my WordPress backend here is because I've got 2 GB of memory on my server that I've given to PHP, which means WordPress can also use this much memory. And then you'll install it. Just give it a little bit of time to install, and then we'll activate it. So once I have activated my LightSpeed plugin, you will see like a new item here in the menu, which is LightSpeed Cache. There are so many options, so we're not going to go over all of the options today. I'll actually save the step-by-step every single option and detail to a course that I'm planning to do. But for the sake of the tutorial, I'll just show you the few bits and pieces like the quick setup. So the first place when you go, you want to go to General, and you want to request a domain key. So let's do that right now. You click on this, give it a few seconds, and then you can choose whether you want to automatically upgrade this plugin or not. I usually say yes, because I have a backup anyway, so if something breaks on the website due to an upgrade that has a bug or anything, I can still restore to yesterday's version. And then do I want notifications? And then leave everything as is here. You don't need to do any, you don't need to put in the server IP or anything. I'm just gonna save the changes, right? Then the next step for me would be the page optimization. And now is when it starts to get a little bit more techy. And this is when you have to tread a little bit with care, because the options that you choose here may or may not break your website. So basically, to give you an idea, what is the CSS minification? CSS, as we said earlier, is the cascading style sheets. It's responsible for pretty much the look and feel of your website. And for every item that you have on a web page, you can pretty much tell the browser how to see, how to display, or how to load this specific item, even if the item is just a line of text. And because of that, and because of the designs now are very well advanced and more complicated, you end up having so many CSS instructions per page or per item. And basically what you do here, you want to compress them all into kind of a one file that's responsible for the whole page. So you want to minify this. Instead of the CSS loading as every item on your page is loading, you want one CSS file to load that's responsible for the whole page, so it makes things load faster. So you want to switch this on, okay, and then save. Let's see if this broke anything on my page. Of course it shouldn't, but like I'm just being careful here, right? Everything is there, the little animation is there, so it looks like we're good. The next thing is, now you would not want to combine CSS unless your hosting server isn't using HTTP2. So I know that my web server, which is on LightSpeed as well, is using the HTTP2 protocol. So I'm going to switch this part on, but I will not combine because I'm already using HTTP2. And I will also want to have a unique CSS file if I'm using combine. But since I'm not using combine, I will leave these two off, right? And then I'll scroll down, leave everything else. Like there are so many other options here. And as I said, we'll discuss them later in a full course. But for the sake of making this tutorial quick, I'll leave the rest as a default. I'll save my changes. Then I'll go to the JavaScript settings, do the same thing. JavaScript minify, no combination, but I'll push the HTTP2. I'll leave everything else as is, save my changes. And now let's go and see if anything broke. Everything looks as good as it is, right? So now let me go back to the General tab to see if my domain key worked. Looks like it did. And usually you'll find here something that says add to the dashboard. This is a service from the makers of LightSpeed caching plugin. So you go and create a free account there, and then you'll link your website to that account. So as you can see here, everything looks pretty much normal there. Let's test and see the result of our optimization. So just to remind ourselves, this is the old test before we did any work, which if you remember was 2 seconds, 2.14, right? And the page size is about 2 megabytes, and we've got 62 requests. Now let's see after the optimization what happens. Now look at that, 666 milliseconds. So we were able to reduce the time for this website or the time for this homepage to load from 2 seconds, 2.25, right? To less than 1 second, to even almost equal to half a second, like a little bit more than half a second, right? You look there, the page, the size without optimization was 1.9. Of course, as you can see, we've compressed some of the cascading style sheets and some of the JavaScript. So this has reduced the page size a little bit from 1.9. It has reduced it to 1.8, and it has reduced the requests from 62 requests here to 56 requests because we've combined some CSS and some JavaScript files. But this is not the important part. The most important part is the site now loads in less than a second, right? Instead of 2 point whatever it was, it's less than a second. Let's see how fast it loads now if we go and let me just open it in a new browser window and copy the address. Here we go. Go there to the new tab, paste, and let's see how fast it is. Blazing fast. Look. So the other thing that you need to look at, and it's a little bit more tedious job and will take you a little bit more time, is to look at your media files. So let me go show you what I mean. As an example, let's look at this, for example. See how big this graphic is? If I go, I'm trying to look at the size. Look at that. So it's 1920 pixels wide by 1021 pixels long. Okay, so when you look at this, of course it's HD. The full HD is 1920 by 1080. So it's a little bit short in kind of depth or length than HD. So, but it's within the parameters for that. Think about the largest computer screen that your size would be, your size, your site would be displayed on. If the largest computer screen, let's say, is what, 24 inches, for example, or let's say somebody's watching your website on their TV, on their smart TV, and they're on full HD. So their full HD is 1920 by 1080. This makes this size of image adequate for that. But if the average computer screen for the people who are going to be visiting your website, let's say 22 inches, you probably don't need the photo to be that wide by that long. You probably need it a little bit smaller than this. So my advice to you is to, for every image that you're going to be uploading to make part of your website, look at the size of the image that you wanted displayed in the browser. Let me give you like a quick example. For example, look at this. Like the only thing that I see here is a red dot, right? However, the image is 1954 by 1455. I doubt that I need this image to be that wide, that big, because the browser will load it and kind of resize it. If you're using a mobile, it will be resized to fit a smaller screen. If you're using a bigger screen size with your computer, even bigger than this, the browser will resize it to fit the bigger screen. And of course, when the browser is doing that by itself, it takes a few more seconds or a few more splits of a second to load because it needs to resize every image on your page, right? So I don't know, I think like this might be the little dot image that I'm looking at, and it doesn't have to be that big. So I might as well take this, put it on Photoshop, resize it in Photoshop, or like your preferred graphics editor, and then re-upload it with the newer size, which would be like a smaller size. So this way you're not relying on the browser. Like another example, look at this. I don't know how many pixels this is. It's like it's a very small, in fact, let me measure it. I've got a plugin which has like a page ruler that tells me the size of stuff on my screen. So yeah, this little thing, this little icon is about 97 by 95. So on my display, on my laptop, I see it in my browser as 97 by 95. Let me have a quick look what it is in reality. I don't know which one it was, the left one or the right one. I think it is the left one here, which is the right one here. Let's click there and look. Yeah, it's 99 by 100. So in theory, if I wanted to optimize it, I would take this, download it, put it through my graphics editor, and make it 97 by 95 instead of 99 by 100 pixels, so that the browser doesn't need to compress it to 97 by 95 from its original size. So I'm giving the image to the browser as I wanted to see it exactly. I'm not asking the browser to resize it as larger or smaller for me. I'm just giving it the exact right size. Again, there's no, I mean, this is the science behind it, but there's no one size fits all here. If you think that 80% of the users will be accessing your website from their mobile phones, you don't need to have huge images, because these images are going to be compressed and resized, you know, to fit their little phone screen anyway, right? So whatever fits somewhere maybe doesn't fit somebody else. So this is kind of a trial and error thing that you do, guys, in order to optimize your site to load faster. I hope this little tutorial is useful to you. Let me know in your comments below the video. Thank you very much. See you on the next one. Bye.
Hang on, don't go away yet. Now that you've completed this video, I'm going to have to ask you to click on the like if you have enjoyed it, because everybody likes to be liked, you know? You can also subscribe. That way, you're going to get all of the cool YouTube stuff made by this guy right here. And finally, why not let all your friends know how great you thought this video was? You can share it with them or even use it in your blog. Thank you. Thank you very much. We see you soon.